Have you ever wondered why some women seem to fall under the spell of a man whose presence shifts the air the moment he enters the room? Why even the most emotionally intelligent, self-aware woman can find herself spiraling in the orbit of a man who never even tries to catch her? It's not always his words. Often, it's the silence between them. It's not what he does, it's how he is. His posture unhurried. His voice low and certain. His gaze unapologetically still. Alpha energy. That ancient primal rhythm that stirs something below language, before reason. It penetrates not with force, but with command. And command, to the unhealed feminine, feels like home. Because in the depths of the unconscious feminine psyche lies a longing, not for dominance, but for certainty. For structure. For the masculine container strong enough to hold her chaos without crumbling. This is not submission, it is yearning to surrender the hypervigilance born of wounds. And the alpha energy whispers, you can rest here. But be warned, what feels like safety may, in truth, be seduction. Many women are not addicted to the man himself, but to what he represents in the theater of their own psyche. He is not a lover. He is an archetype. The protector she never had. The father who didn't stay. The mirror of her longing to be seen without softening her edges. He becomes the symbol of completion. Not because he is whole, but because her own soul still searches for wholeness. Jung would say, it is projection. The animus, that masculine spirit within the woman, not yet integrated, cast upon a man with enough presence to hold its silhouette. And thus, the addiction begins. Not to the man, but to the illusion. To the part of herself she sees flickering in his eyes. You know this dance. The high when he chooses you. The drop when he pulls away. The ache that feels more like identity than emotion. You call it love, but it's often just a trauma bond wearing designer cologne. And yet you can't look away. Because some part of you still hopes he is what you imagined. That he can quiet the noise. That his calm will silence your storm. But what if the true alpha, the one who can truly hold you, isn't outside of you, but within? The alpha man is an illusion stitched from both power and projection, a figure woven from threads of your longing, your ache for certainty, your ancient blueprint of masculine strength. But when he enters your life, he doesn't walk in alone. He carries the entire weight of your unconscious history, unknowingly playing a role written long before he arrived. In him, you don't just see a man. You see resolution. Of your father wound. Of your abandonment stories. Of your buried hunger to be seen without masks, to be claimed without begging, to finally stop performing. And so, you hand him your myth, and he becomes a god you kneel to in silence. But this isn't worship. It's repetition. Jung warned us of the dangers of falling in love with the projected animus, the inner masculine ideal that hasn't yet been made conscious. When she doesn't know her own strength, a woman chases it in men. When she hasn't integrated her discipline, her structure, her clarity, she will crave his. Even if he's emotionally unavailable. Even if he's careless with her soul. Even if she knows he can't meet her fully. She stays not because of who he is, but because of who she becomes in his presence. And what does she become? She becomes smaller. Sharper. Hungrier. Her emotions, once flowing like rivers, now twist into anxious streams seeking his approval. The high of his attention becomes a drug. A glance, a touch, a message, tiny hits of dopamine that light up the nervous system like wildfire. And when he withdraws, she crashes. Her nervous system remembers every previous abandonment and collapses into survival mode. He becomes the battlefield where her wounds reawaken. You feel this, don't you? The way your soul shrinks in his silence. The way your mind obsesses over decoding his absence. The way your body betrays your logic, whispering, just one more touch. But this isn't chemistry, it's captivity. And it lives in the nervous system, not the heart. The addiction isn't about him. It never was. It's about the unresolved you that thinks she needs him to feel complete. It's about the part of you still looking for the alpha outside, when the real alpha, the sovereign, decisive, unshakable masculine, is a frequency you can learn to birth within. When that happens, the spell breaks. She begins to see him differently, not as the savior of her chaos, but as the reflection of it. His intensity once felt like gravity, pulling her into the illusion of depth. But now, she realizes, what she mistook for power was often just control. What she thought was presence was sometimes emotional detachment wrapped in dominance. And what felt like love may have simply been her nervous system crying out for familiarity. Familiar, yes, but not healthy. This is the trap. The alpha energy, when unbalanced, plays to the archetypal wound of the feminine, the need to be chosen, to be tamed, to be worthy in the eyes of the strong. She romanticizes his aloofness, thinking it's mystery. She interprets his avoidance as stoicism, his emotional distance as strength. She tells herself stories to survive the emotional starvation, because the fantasy is easier to digest than the truth. He does not have the capacity to meet her. And still, she clings. Because addiction doesn't ask what is good. It only asks what is familiar. This is shadow work. This is where the mirror cracks. Where she must confront not the man, but herself. Why did she stay when she felt unseen? Why did she romanticize the chase? Why did the ambiguity feel like affection? And why did she confuse the thrill of being chosen with the experience of being loved? Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." So long as she remains unaware of her patterns, she will repeat them. In different bodies. With different names. The alpha may change, but the addiction stays, cycling through new faces with the same emotional script. But the moment she brings light to the pattern, the moment she stops glamorizing his intensity, and starts questioning her own hunger, she steps into power. That hunger? It's not for him. It's for her own inner masculine, the part of her that takes action without fear, sets boundaries without apology, provides structure, silence, and clarity without seeking permission. When she embodies that, she stops reaching for it in men. And when she does, something else shifts. She no longer chases the alpha. She becomes sovereign. Sovereignty is not loud. It does not beg, nor bend, nor bargain. It rises, calm, deliberate, and whole. And when a woman finds it within herself, the spell of the alpha archetype no longer hypnotizes her. Because now, she sees what he truly is, a mirror, not a master. He once held the power to fracture her. Now, he holds the memory of a lesson learned. In the early stages of awakening, this can feel like grief. The loss of illusion is often more painful than the loss of love. She must mourn the fantasy, the version of him that lived in her imagination, not his reality. That fantasy held her captive. That fantasy told her she needed to be chosen, that she needed to stay beautiful, soft, desirable, just enough to be kept. Just enough to be claimed. But now she questions, claimed by whom? And for what? The alpha archetype, when distorted, draws in the woman who has not yet met her own inner throne. She confuses his power with protection. She believes that being near him will save her from herself. But true power does not rescue. True masculinity, in its sacred form, invites. It never consumes. A woman addicted to that consuming energy is not weak, she is unawakened. But the fire she walked through, the tears she shed in silence, the nights she waited for a message that never came, all of it forged a weapon inside her. Not to harm, but to cut ties with the lie that she is incomplete without a man's attention. The path forward isn't about avoiding men with alpha energy. It's about discerning what version of herself they awaken. Does he elevate your spirit or agitate your shadow? Does he see you, or simply conquer you? This is not about vilifying the masculine. It is about reclaiming the feminine. And in that reclamation, something ancient stirs. The feminine that no longer begs for affection. The woman who no longer fractures herself to earn closeness. The sovereign soul who knows, no man, alpha or not, can complete a self she has already claimed. And when that knowing lives in her bones, she becomes magnetic in a different way. Not in the frantic pulse of desperation, but in the stillness of command. The alpha doesn't addict her anymore. He notices her. But she no longer needs him to. Because now, she carries the alpha within. His dominance was once mistaken for direction. But direction born from ego seeks only to dominate others, while direction rooted in individuation seeks to master the self. The woman who has integrated her own inner masculine no longer yearns to be guided by false kings. She becomes her own compass. And the moment that happens, the archetype of the alpha loses its grip. The spell breaks, not with bitterness, but with clarity. In the sacred dance of polarity, the alpha is not the problem. The problem is unconsciousness, when she gives away her power without realizing it, when she calls abandonment, mystery, and instability passion. The problem is not that he was too strong. It's that she forgot she was, too. You feel it, don't you? That simmer beneath the surface. The knowing that every time you silence your truth to be easier, sexier, less emotional, you betrayed yourself. Every time you dimmed your light to keep him comfortable, you taught your nervous system that love was earned through shrinking. But the soul doesn't shrink. It expands. And the heart? It never thrives in bondage. You were never meant to orbit around someone else's chaos. You were meant to rise from your own center. This is where the addiction ends, not because you've stopped craving him, but because you've started craving yourself more. You start building the inner temple. You return to your breath. You remember your body is holy ground, not a battlefield for masculine approval. And when he returns, as they often do, you won't be swayed by the same thunder that once shook you. You'll see the posture, the confidence, the intensity. And you'll ask yourself quietly, is this resonance or repetition? Because now you know the difference. Alpha energy in its awakened form is not a drug, it's a sacred match. But until you're sovereign within, you won't know the difference between the one who ignites your soul and the one who manipulates your wounds. Carl Jung spoke of the anima and animus, the inner feminine and masculine within us all. Until those forces are balanced, we seek externally what we haven't yet found inside. And that's what the addiction truly is, a call to wholeness, masked as romantic obsession. Answer the call, not by chasing a man, but by meeting yourself where you abandoned you. And then, you will choose differently. When a woman meets herself fully, the illusion of the alpha dissolves like fog under sunlight. Not because he is less than he appeared, but because she has become more than she believed. The hunger for dominance, control, and chaotic passion once felt like a storm she needed to survive, proof that she could weather anything for love. But now she sees, true love isn't a battlefield. It's a temple. And it demands reverence, not war. The feminine doesn't need permission to rise. She only needs remembrance. In the stillness of her healing, she no longer searches for his shadow to merge with hers. She starts tracing the blueprint of her soul. She begins to recognize that the parts of him she once craved were simply echoes of her own suppressed power. His confidence mirrored her own potential. His decisiveness reflected the boundaries she had yet to draw. His fire matched a flame within her that had long been smothered by the fear of being too much. But she is not too much. She is everything. And the very moment she stops waiting for the alpha to affirm her worth, she becomes the force he once pretended to be. This is the sacred reversal, the great return. She walks back into her body, no longer begging to be chosen. She becomes the chooser. She understands now that addiction to his energy was not about him. It was about the missing piece of herself she thought he carried. Jung taught us that what we do not bring to consciousness appears in our lives as fate. That alpha, that archetype, that heartbreak, it was never punishment. It was a messenger. A myth dressed as a man. He came to awaken the wild woman buried under years of obedience, fear, and compromise. And if she listened, truly listened, she heard something deeper than his voice. She heard her own. The one she silenced when she thought love meant sacrifice. The one she ignored when her intuition screamed, "This isn't real safety, it's a cycle." And now? That voice is thunder. That knowing is gold. The alpha was never her answer. He was her mirror. A fragment. A teacher. A test. She doesn't hate him. She honors him. For showing her everything she is, by showing her everything she is not. And that, is how the addiction ends.